Hi, I'm Tessa, a veteran educator working in the field of special education.
And I'm Kim, mom of 2 autistic boys and a late diagnosed autistic person myself.
And welcome to Totally Over the Spectrum, where we dive into embracing autism through understanding and support.
Hello, and welcome to episode 35, where we're talking about autistic communication difficulties.
All right, and before we get into this, please, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe and share your thoughts and comments with us. We really appreciate it on this subject or any subject, and also on what podcasts you do like and don't, so that we can always strive to improve.
Yeah. All right, autistic communication difficulties. So part of the diagnostic criteria for autism in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, we're on version 5, is persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts.
And autism is defined as a communication disorder. Sadly,
I have never come across it being defined as that. I think that might be a school thing, because this is directly out of the DSM, and it's deficits in social communication, not all communication.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're correct, but it still falls under communication.
Okay, so I know. I think we are trying to move forward, like towards more neurodiversity affirming language rather than deficits. I would think that we're moving towards using the term differences, because that's what it is.
It is a difference, yeah.
But before we get rolling into all of that, I'm going to give a rundown of what we're going to be discussing today.
Okay, go for it.
So, as always, definition: what is communication? And then I'd like to talk about what is, or how is autistic communication different from neurotypical or non-autistic communication? And then some strategies for better communication.
Yeah, and I'm going to chime in and, add my, thoughts to your points, and then, but definitely bring in the more aspects of providing you the strategies in which I use on a daily basis.
Right. So what is communication? Essentially, communication is really just the process of exchanging information.
Mm-hmm.
And that information can be ideas, thoughts, feelings, and communication can happen between 2 people or groups of people. And there are different forms of communication.
Okay.
Right? So we have verbal or spoken words, we have written words, we have physical gestures, and we basically use communication as a way to understand each other.
We also have alternative forms of communication, which we will dive into as you go
Yeah,
into
I
this.
would consider those to be written, right? Could be pictures as well. So how is autistic communication different from neurotypical communication? I have a few points on this. Okay.
Yes, I know. We've discussed this in detail quite a bit, and on a personal level. So it's good that we're translating this into the podcast.
Autistic individuals tend to be literal and direct in their communication,
Which a lot of neurotypical people take as offensive.
Well, they can. It's not meant to be offensive.
So this is why I think it's an important subject to say that you're just being factual versus being offensive.
We like to be straightforward and honest. And you would think superficially, neurotypical people will say, oh, straightforward and honest, that's great. But in practical terms, yeah, it's not always well received. We also tend to be more to the point. Like, we like to exchange information, and a lot of what neurotypical people do is they talk a lot, but they don't seem to say anything.
It is.
Right?
That is very true.
So they'll use a lot of non-literal language. They'll use a lot of sarcasm or metaphors, idioms, those kinds of things. But what they really do, which things get murky for us, is they use subtext and innuendos, right? So that means that they imply a meaning without coming out and saying it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm supposed to play this decipher game.
Yes.
Right? Why can't you just say what you mean?
Well, what would be the fun in that?
Well, it would be a lot more fun for me. All right. So the second point I have Autistic individuals also use social niceties less than neurotypical people do. Things like small talk, like nice weather today, and polite phrases like, how are you, as a matter of politeness, but without genuine intent.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And all of that for me is just nonsensical and boring, and it's draining because there's no actual point to it.
Yes, and this is where you're implying when you're talking in a generalized form, not when you have a personal relationship with someone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. Like, nice weather today. Yes, it's 24 degrees here in Canada. It's lovely. Thank you. Like, why are we doing? Like, I feel like neurotypical people think that that's a form of connection, but it feels so superficial that I don't feel like it's a form of connection.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail right on the head. It's that people do that in order to start, placing the foundations and forming those connections as they try to navigate who this person is and what they're all about, in a safe and productive way.
Now, sometimes I think people just want to talk. So you're walking, you're going out for a walk, and it's a lovely day, and someone passes you by and they say, "Oh, good morning, lovely weather we're having." They keep walking. They won't really want a conversation or an answer. They're just saying stuff for the sake of saying stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Exhausting. Ruin my
I
walk.
think because a lot of times I find neurotypical people find it very difficult to operate in a sense of silence or quiet or calm. They become very dysregulated when all of those components are in place, where neurodivergent people are in their elements when all of those are in place.
Yeah, if I don't have something interesting to say, I've got nothing to say.
Mm-hmm.
The third one that I have, differences in the use of eye contact. So neurotypical people rely on eye contact as an indicator, right? So that indicates to them that the person they're communicating with is engaged, they're interested, and they're sincere.
Which is a contradiction to neurodivergent, because the first time, as an educator, I find it frustrating when people are teaching or are trying to make a connection with a person, with an autistic person who does not like to provide eye contact because it is overstimulating or for whatever reason, in order to make sure that they are getting the information, right? There's different ways in which you can understand that the person has obtained that information without asking them to give you that eye contact. So for me, I don't use it, right? I find other ways in saying, did you understand me? Do you know what to do? Without saying, look at me. Because if I'm trying to provide an instruction, I would rather ensure that they are hearing me and able to follow what I'm saying versus giving me the eye contact that neurotypical people seek in order to gain, a yes or no in moving forward.
Right. You're making it about your student and what they require and not about you.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, neurotypical people often have sort of broad conversation topics. They like to jump around and talk about different things. And conversation is often about taking turns and reciprocal interest. Now, autistic individuals like to exchange information about specific interests.
Yes.
Right? So it can be really difficult to have a conversation with someone who's talking about something you're not interested in at all. So I am never more happy and engaged than in a conversation than when someone is knowledgeable about a topic that I am interested in. Right? So it's like, oh, you have a t-shirt company? How exciting. What do you use? Like, do you use direct to garment or direct to film, or do you use screen printing or heat transfer? Like, there's details in there that I would like to know about their process and what they're doing. Right? But, and I will happily talk details about this for hours. How exciting to be making something. But talk sports to me. And I would rather have a root canal done. Like, I don't want to hear it. I care nothing about it whatsoever.
So when the conversation is intellectual, and is on the topic that you would find interesting and engaging, you're firing on all cylinders and you're excited. But if it brings it down to the emotional level where you're now having to decipher from, the physical cues that a person is presenting and a subject that is based on emotions, it's very draining for you. And especially when it's not a topic that you enjoy.
If it's not a topic I enjoy, I'm out. Like, I will tune out. And I try to be polite, right? You try, because that's what you're supposed to be doing, but I would rather just walk away.
Okay.
All right. Number 5. Autistic individuals sometimes have a different rhythm and tone when we speak. So like our cadence can be different. We could be more monotone, right? Not have a lot of inflection. And our volume might be higher or lower than what neurotypical people would generally use.
And can also be very robotic sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm not masking, I can be really flat and blunt. Sometimes, I get hyper-focused on something and I forget to modulate my voice. And then people are like, are you okay? I'm like, well, I was until you took me out of my hyper-focus.
Yeah.
Number 6, the use of nonverbal cues can be very different, right? Facial expressions, gestures, or body language. Autistic individuals can sometimes appear stiff or expressionless compared to neurotypical people.
Yeah, and then I also find that the expressions are exaggerated too, right? So with some of the kids that I work with, when they're mad, they're like, really make a mad face for me, right? Or if they're sad, they exaggerate the emotions, right? Just to make sure that they feel that this is how they get to express it because that's how they're feeling. And it's a magnified, feeling. So therefore they magnify the expression to go with it. I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it. And, and it leaves no room for doubt exactly how they're feeling.
I wonder if they do that because they feel like that's what that feeling is supposed to look like.
Yes. That's what I interpret it to be, right? So I find that those expressions are magnified in order to present how they're feeling about it.
Right. So I wonder if that's from being misunderstood, that you start to overemphasize in order to be better understood. I remember talking to Alex when he was little. Alex is my oldest son. He's level 1, lower support needs. And I forget what we were talking about, but he looks at me and he goes, "Why do you have angry eyebrows?" And I had to stop and think about that for a second because I have alexithymia. I don't always know how I'm feeling or how to describe it. But I think I was mildly irritated about something, but it was not in my tone of voice. So I was just naturally furrowing my brow.
Mm-hmm.
And because your brow is furrowed, well, those are angry eyebrows. So he couldn't reconcile my facial expression with my voice or my actions at the time. So I remember that clearly because I thought, oh, that's something that I need to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. And you guys are good at picking up on that, right?
Number 7, autistic individuals often use echolalia or scripting. So echolalia is the repetition of words, phrases, or sounds, and scripting can be repeating memorized phrases from media or past conversations, or Alex and I both do this where we prearrange phrases for future conversations that we're going to have.
Yeah. And for your level 3, it's, it's a form of communication and frustration. So when I notice that when a student that I'm working with, the echolalia starts to increase in intensity, duration, I start to pay attention to say, okay, my student is now very quickly becoming dysregulated, and I start to tailor back exactly what we're doing in order to get back to my baseline so that I can know exactly how far to push and when I've gone a little bit too far. So for me as an educator, I use that as my guidance in knowing when and where to push.
Right. I think echolalia can also be a form of stimming, which is self-regulating behavior. So sometimes it's not directly used as a form of communication, but as a way to self-regulate.
Yeah. And so is scripting too.
Right. And Neurotypical people are often really good with spontaneous, fluid conversations. Don't know how, but apparently that's a thing people do.
It takes practice. For those of us who are neurotypical and are good at it, I think it takes a lot of practice and effort in doing so. And I think that this would be a good, oh, you've given me kind of a thought, and going to try a little bit of experiment, but I'm not going to tell you what and when.
Oh, not on me. All right, number 8. Neurotypical people tend to only want to wait for about 2 seconds for the person they're speaking with to respond. So they say something, they will expect that that person will respond to them in about 2 seconds. Autistic individuals might need longer processing time than that, right? We're often thinking about details, and we would like to respond accurately. And sometimes that takes some thought, right?
Yes.
We're thinking about details that maybe neurotypical people don't even think about.
And especially when it comes to a generalized question, right? You're trying to decipher which aspect of it do you need to respond to and how. So I can see where that can be challenging for you.
It can be as simple as, what time is it? Well, it's 4:47, right? It's going to be that kind of, I'm going to look, I'm going to say, oh, it's 4:47. And neurotypical people might speak in things like, oh, it's 4:45. Or it's almost 10:05, right? Because they're not really bothered by the fact that it's 4:47. 7's close to the quarter, it's close to the 10, it's somewhere in there, it doesn't matter, right? And they're okay with that.
Yep. But your concrete brain needs that concrete information.
It depends what you need it for, right? Like that could be, now I'm almost late, like who knows? All right, let's talk about some strategies for better communication.
Okay, let's do this.
When autistic individuals communicate with other autistic individuals, we tend to do just fine, right? When we're forced to conform to neurotypical standards of conversation, that's when we become dysregulated.
Okay. So now we can break this up into multiple different categories, because your level 1, your level 2, level 3 requires very different approaches when placing strategies in for each one of these. So I'm going to let you stick with your list, because in for you to do that and to be regulated in order to provide us the information, you need to follow a set pattern, right? I can jump in between and I don't get dysregulated about it. So, but for you, in order to communicate effectively, this needs to be done. So I'm going to let you stick with this, and I'm going to jump in and add my strategies that I use in order to complement what you're saying.
Excellent. The first one I have is sensory overload. So we might have difficulty communicating when our environment is overwhelming, right? If things are noisy, if they're bright, if they're crowded, it can make it hard to process speech or focus on conversation.
Yeah, I agree. And the environment could be how light it is, how noisy it is, So it could be how many people are in the room, right? Whether it's a large room, a small room. The environment, believe it or not, plays a huge factor in communication.
If I become dysregulated, I might lose my ability to speak.
Yep, I agree with you on that one.
So what are some strategies? Having quiet, low stimulation spaces for conversation.
Yep. Removing a lot of visual clutter around you so that you're able to focus on what is being said rather than your eye gaze going on to and picking up what the environment is providing a stimulant for you.
I can only hear one conversation at a time. So if there are 2 people and they both start talking at the same time, it will sound like noise to me. I will not pick out any information from either person.
Yep.
So in crowded places, sometimes the noise from other people's conversations, I can't hear the person who's speaking to me. I have to really work at it to hear them. So another really good strategy is written or text-based communication if verbal interaction is too much.
Yeah, it is. And it could be also in you refer to text. It could also be using a device, right? An ACC, which is an alternative and augmentative form of communication. So, if you're finding it too overwhelming to do that, you have, you have your iPads, your iPhones, which makes it in this day and age far more accessible to communicate.
Yeah, there are non-speaking individuals who use augmented communication devices in order to communicate. Right? So that is a strategy that anyone could use.
Absolutely.
Another strategy would be noise canceling headphones or visual schedules to reduce stress.
I find that is really really helpful, right? In order for to help a person regulate emotionally, I think that is an amazing tool that you can carry anywhere in any situation and still be, a lot of times I've got like, oh my God, they're wearing noise canceling headphones. They're going to stand out as different. This is concerns from parents being addressed to me. And I said, in this day and age where a lot of people are now using headphones for their music and noise canceling, it doesn't look out of place.
And so what if it does?
And that's exactly what I said. And your regulation or your child's regulation is far more important than the appearance. So, but in this day and age, parents, there are some great noise canceling headphones that are comfortable, that are soft, and do the job very, very well.
And you can also get earbuds now that are really good at noise canceling all on their own.
Yep.
Right? So you can listen to your music or you can listen to nothing. And it does a really good job of blocking things out. And no one thinks twice when you have earbuds in, right?
Absolutely.
So the next one I have is interpreting social cues. So understanding facial expressions and the tone of voice that the person is using, their body language, or sarcasm. It's funny because I went to visit a friend of mine, and she was doing a thorough clean of her house, and her sister-in-law had come over to help her clean her house, right? So I was dropping something off, and of course I had to perseverate on whether it was okay to drop something off with someone else there. Anyway, I decided to do it. So I go and I drop this thing off, and I met her sister-in-law, who's a lovely person, and the sister-in-law said, "Oh, I've been here cleaning since 5 o'clock this morning." And I took that as a matter of fact because I've never met her before and I didn't notice any overt signs of sarcasm. So I took that to be true, that she had been there since 5 o'clock. And my friend looked at me and she put her hand on my arm and she goes, "Kim, she hasn't actually been here since 5 o'clock this morning." And she didn't miss a beat. She didn't wait for me to respond or anything. She just did. And I looked at her and I said, "Thank you so much for that." Because she knows me, right? I said, "I totally believed that she's been here since 5 o'clock this morning."
Yeah.
Like I missed it altogether.
Yeah. It is, yeah, we are complicated, creatures, aren't we? And then
I had no reason to believe that that's not true.
True. Yeah.
Right? I just thought, whoa, that's some dedication there to come and help. Like why would I think that would not be a true statement?
You were all set to give her that golden ribbon to say, "Hey, kudos to you."
I was dropping off cake.
Yeah,
So there you go. So some strategies: using clear, direct language. Like avoid that kind of sarcasm, especially when this is a new person. I don't know you well enough to know what your delivery is of that, because some people are very, straight-faced when they're doing it. Like how would I know?
One of the strategies I use, especially for my level 1 students, is there is going to be, I'm going to take Friends episode, right? The series. And I will run a little segment of it and mute it. And make sure that, first of all, the person that I'm working with has not seen this episode. And go, tell me what their body language is explaining to you in this scene. And, have a discussion about it and, what is it that they're reading and why. And then go back and play it, and just to see whether they were accurate on that, and then pick up on the subtleties in which people are able to then start to effectively decipher that information.
So do you find that shows like that are more overt?
It is. And when teaching that skill for the first time, I want those overt reactions because I need you to make that that very strong connection with that. And then I start to fade that to the more subtle ones as you improve on gauging those, nonverbal cues.
Okay. I think another good strategy is to pair verbal messages with visual supports or written clarification. I need clarification on things, and sometimes that is apparently really irritating for people.
Yeah, I'm a little bit reluctant on the written communication because you need somebody that is able to clearly indicate and label that for you. And then some people are not very good at that, right? For example, I'm going to use visual and written as, social stories in presenting a scenario, a situation in which, effective social skills are needed. If a social story is not written properly, it is giving a wrong message and is labeling a wrong type of response for a situation. So if you're going to be writing something out, then please make sure that you write it out properly for that person.
I think another strategy might be to be patient and check in with the person, right? Like, did that make sense, or do you need me to explain that in a different way? Like, just leaving that open for the person to be able to ask further questions.
Yeah, that's always, it's the same strategy that I would use with not just with a person with autism, but if there was a person who had visual impairments, I would not automatically just jump in and say, "Hey, I'm going to grab your hand and do that." That's a no-no, right? I would just say, "Do you require the assistance, and how can I assist you in that?" And wait for them to guide me in which is best for them.
All right. Expressive language differences.
Ooh.
So that could include limited speech, right, or non-speaking, use of echolalia, scripting, or alternative communication methods.
Yeah, it's such a diverse subject, and we can cover, and it is person specific. Right. So I think we'll just generalize the information. And for our listeners who are out there and that require that specific information or have those questions, please reach out to us. We are so happy to get that from you. And we're happy to be able to relate to your question on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah. So some strategies: accept and support all forms of communication.
Yep.
Right? Like, don't demand something that someone is not capable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you do that?
Yeah, I agree.
Don't interrupt or pressure a person to talk more, right? This might be all I am able to give you.
Yep. And allow that to naturally develop, right? You're in a social setting. You're not in a therapy session, and you're not in, I'm not working with a student to be able to build those skills where I have a limited amount of time, and that's a different environment in which I am building those skills, right? So, but on a social aspect, yeah, absolutely, don't force it.
Yeah, it'd be really great for you to learn and engage with the autistic individual's preferred methods of expression.
Mm-hmm. And please, people, if somebody has a device, if they have an ACC, or if they have a PEC system, right, which is a picture exchange, please do not take it from them. That is so rude and so disrespectful.
That is their voice.
Yes.
And you are effectively taking their voice from them.
Yeah. If the person is to give it to you in order to seek help, in order for it to be rearranged in a certain manner, or assistance in effectively communicating, then that is one thing, right? That is an engagement on their behalf. Don't take it from them without their consent.
Yeah. Difficulty with small talk. So social conventions like how are you or nice weather, they really do feel confusing and pointless. So maybe we could sort of respect an autistic person's preference to skip the small talk or go straight to meaningful conversation, right? Yeah. Small talk is painful.
It can be, but when I haven't seen you in a while and I turn around to you and say, hi, Kim, how are you? Like, for me, asking you how you are is like, how are you doing? This is me touching base with you to see what your baseline is, which is very different from you going into a party and going, hey, how are you? Right? You don't know who that person is. You don't know what they're about, and you find it difficult.
Even when you ask me, how are you? I have to stop and think about it for a minute. And then I might not say how I am so much as I will say what is going on at the moment, and then let you infer how I might be based on the amount of stuff that's happening, mm-hmm. right? So I don't always directly answer that question, right? But sometimes people are pretty good at filling in the blanks without actually giving them that information.
Yep.
You can also provide context for small talk, right? So explaining that people usually say this to be polite because for kids, they might not understand what all of those social things are, mm-hmm. right? You might need to actually take the time to explain it to them to have it make sense.
And a lot of times in teaching kids the social skills, I'm very factual like you. When they say something and I go, well, that was rude for this reason, right? I just don't blatantly say, well, that is rude and then get on with it. And no, it is rude when you're speaking with a neurotypical person because they interpret it to be A, B, and C, right? A better approach for you to say would be A, B, and C, right? So bridging that learning of understanding of why it can be interpreted this way and giving them options on how to then provide solutions for the next time around.
Yeah, and rudeness is about intent,
mm-hmm.
right? So when Alex was really little, we had someone staying with us for a little while. And Alex sort of mostly went off and did his own thing, but he happened to see that the person was still there. And he looked at him and goes, oh, why are you still here? And that person was immediately offended. Like, do you want me to go home? But that was not his intent. It was really like, oh, why are you still here? Why? But his tone, of course, was a little bit off. And it was a genuine question. Well, what? Mostly people visit and they go home, but you've stayed overnight. Why is that?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to do just that and say, oh, well, sometimes when you say it that way, it might hurt someone's feelings because. And what might be another way you could ask that question that would not hurt that person's feelings?
Mm-hmm.
So give them that opportunity to think about it and come up with some alternatives. And if he was not able to come up with alternatives, then I could help him out. But I would like to give him that opportunity first.
To do so.
Yeah. So a really great way of connecting with an autistic person is to offer alternative ways to connect, right? Shared activities or interest-based conversations.
Mm-hmm. And, yes, we are putting a lot of emphasis on verbal communication. You can spend a lot of time, like Peter and I, spend a lot of time together, quality time, meaningful time. Very little is spoken between the two of us.
Did we say who Peter is in this episode? I've totally forgotten. Peter's my youngest son. He's level 3 non-speaking.
Yeah. And, it is, we've had some of the best moments by just sitting together on a bench overlooking the lake and just being in the moment with each other, with his I had both your boys, might I add, one on one side, one on the other, sitting on the bench overlooking the lake. One was resting his head on one shoulder and the other one was resting the head on the other shoulder. And there's me lounged out, and all three of us in bliss. And not a word was said between the three of us. But we were all in sync. We were all in one of the most happy moments, and no verbal communication. So it doesn't always have to be verbal communication.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful thing for people to do just for themselves. I think any person is to become comfortable with silence.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, the next one I have is literal interpretation. So this one gets you in a lot of trouble. Autistic people may take things at face value, right? And struggle with innuendos, metaphors, or subtext.
Such as raining cats and dogs.
Well, I mean, it's not like I don't know what that means, but I'm sure at some point in my life I thought, that's weird. So, yeah, it's not like you can't learn it. I spent an entire summer with Alex teaching him all about sarcasm and idioms because I had read somewhere that it says, oh, never use sarcasm and idioms with your autistic child. I'm like, screw you, I'll do whatever I want to do. And so I spent an entire summer teaching him that. And what came out of that was also him developing a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And going back to school and me having to tell the school, okay, this is what we worked on over the summer, so there might be some things that come out that are going to be perhaps a little bit inappropriate, and you just need to be factual and explain why what he's saying is a little bit inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And I use sarcasm with my students all the time, right? Because this is giving them an opportunity to learn for what the real world is all about. So
there's a lot of sarcasm in media.
Mm-hmm.
A lot, even children's programming has a tremendous amount of sarcasm in it.
Yep.
So I thought that it was very helpful to learn, and I knew that he could learn it. It had to be explicitly taught.
Yes,
That's all.
it does. Yep.
I think when you are talking about important things, it is important to use concrete, literal language. Don't, if you're feeling a certain way, don't expect me to guess what that feeling is. I'm going to miss it, right? Don't hint about your feelings. Tell me I am feeling a certain way, right? Otherwise, I'm going to miss it.
And then both, you're offended that the person didn't get it, and offended that they didn't respond appropriately to it. So you can avoid all of that confusion by being upfront.
Yeah, and you can explain figures of speech in a non-patronizing way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not stupid just because I thought that she was there at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm not stupid. That's what she said she had done.
Yeah.
Right?
And it is reasonable to think that, yes, sometimes people were needed and start at early in the morning. Yeah.
Okay, next one. Anxiety in social settings. Social interactions can cause a lot of stress, especially in unpredictable or group settings.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some strategies? Let the person opt out. Don't expect me to attend all the social gatherings, especially if my battery is already low.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to have a good time, and everyone's going to know it.
Yep. And don't guilt them for it.
Yeah, exactly. You could also provide structure or scripts for expected interactions. So I do a lot of scripting before I'll make a phone call, for example, because I don't want to have the person say hello and not be prepared and stumble over my words. And I want to be able to say all of the information that I want to say and not forget it, which is why I script these podcasts, because I have a lot of information that I want to say and I can easily be led off track, and I want it to flow and to make sense. So I need to stick to it. Otherwise, that becomes really confusing and dysregulating for me. So you can prepare people ahead of time with clear information about who, what, and where. Who's going to be there? What are we going to be doing? Where are we going?
Mm-hmm.
And I might have a tremendous number of questions about that. Please be patient.
Yep. And this is just you working through that anxiety level in order to be prepared to feel comfortable in that environment.
When I show up somewhere and something unexpected happens, that causes me anxiety and it dysregulates me. No surprise parties.
Okay.
Interruptions in conversation flow. So turn taking, topic changes, or reading conversational cues can be hard.
Not impossible, but hard.
Yeah. So a strategy would be to allow more time for processing and responding. And then maybe even gently guiding the flow of conversation without correcting or criticizing.
And allowing you to finish one aspect, right? Allowing you to finish that conversation is really important, because a lot of times you need that closure. You need to know that conversation is closed in order to move on to the next part.
When Alex was really little, he had a very difficult time stopping when he was wanting to info dump something, which could take hours. And I didn't always have hours. So I very slowly taught him to pause and then continue until I could get him. And I would do these things slowly. So I might get him to pause at the beginning in case he needed to start over, which can happen when you interrupt. And then I worked it to a longer time before I asked him to pause. And then I'd work the pause a little bit longer and ask him questions in between, and eventually get him to the point where I would say, okay, can we stop there and pick this up again tomorrow?
Yep.
So that was a skill that he had to learn, because when you want to info dump something that's really exciting, you want to get all of this information out, and you might not pick up on the cue that that person has lost interest 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. And this is it's a good life skill, right? To be able to learn how to do that. And you scaffolded that learning, gradually, and, and taught him that very effectively.
When he was young.
Yes.
The last one I have, masking. So masking is all about hiding in this context, your natural communication style to fit in. And masking can lead to stress and burnout.
Yes. And then a neurotypical person goes, oh my God, what did I say or what did I do, when they see that you're so dysregulated that now it's presenting in a physical format.
So some strategies to help with that would be to create safe, accepting environments where authentic autistic communication is encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Don't reward those masking behaviors, right? So don't say, oh, you did really well at that party. No one could tell. Why are you don't praise the masking.
No one can tell what.
No one could tell that you were dysregulated, or that you were masking your autistic traits.
You were not being your authentic self.
Yes. Well, because it made the party better, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because you didn't stand out, or you didn't make anyone else feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. So when it comes to somebody else's comfort zones, that's on them. That's not on you. Right? So be your authentic self.
Yeah. It'd be really great if we could acknowledge and validate the different aspects of communication preferences.
It is. I quite agree with you. And, autistic people are so incredible that they're such amazing out-of-box thinkers, right? And I get so engaged and excited when I'm looking at people and go, oh my God, look at the way they went about to achieve this without going to the direct manner. It's like, how creative was that? It just blows my mind. So
it's a different way of thinking. Your brain works in a different way.
And I embrace that. I really do. And I'd love to see more people embrace that, because it is exciting. It's creative. It's just amazing.
All right. So that is the end for me. So you get to wrap it up.
Okay. I think we've touched based on so much of it. I think we need to focus a little bit on the nonverbal communication
in the next podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you agree with that? Because I think there's so much of that is misunderstood, that I think we need to break it down into segments and provide the information on what it is and strategies in order to support that.
Yeah, that one's personal to me, because Peter is, of course, my youngest son, and he is non-speaking, and I think there are a lot of misconceptions around that
Yeah.
would be really great to talk about.
Yeah. So to me, just because you're non-speaking doesn't mean your receptive language is also low.
Yeah, your expressive language and your receptive, we can talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, till the next time, have a great day, and don't forget to like and subscribe. We really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, and we'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in. If you know someone who might find this episode helpful, feel free to share. Also, check out our website and socials linked in the description.